decided to give him or herself a loan. That's in the rules? No, it's not. Or maybe it was baseball, basketball, soccer, football, tiddlywinks, who knows? But some small rules broken according to somebody, and it escalates into a really big fight. Before long, feelings are hurt, and you don't speak to each other for what feels like forever, even though it's probably just a couple of days. Well, one of my favorite religious scholars from my childhood, you're going to groan, you're going to, oh my goodness, you even had religious scholars in his childhood, but you know this one. My favorite scholar, Dr. Seuss, dealt with this very issue in his story, The Zacks. There were north-going and south-going Zaxes. They were taught to go one way or the other in north-going and south-going schools. One day a north-going and a south-going Zax, well, they come face to face out in a wide open desert. Looked a lot like central Indiana, but without the corn. And neither one of them was going to budge an inch. They were not going to get out of each other's way because they were going to follow the rules of their school. One declares to the other, never budge, that's my rule. Never budge in the least. Not an inch to the west, not an inch to the east. I'll stand here not budging. I can and I will, if it makes you and me and the whole world stand still. Well, you can tell that I've read that one a lot. And it was read to me a lot. My brother and I used to argue a lot. My father hoped it would make a difference. The problem Paul was writing about to those struggling, diverse Christians in Rome that we talked about last week was a lot like this. Various groups in the church had rules that they had picked up in the equivalent of north-going and south-going schools. Paul is asking the cantankerous members of Rome's church not to act like those stubborn Zaxes, refusing to budge on rules concerning what food to eat or not, what days to celebrate or not. Each side is looking at the other and passing all sorts of judgment against those who don't follow the rules they've learned in their particular school. Paul warns his readers if they head down that road, they will find it exceedingly hard to worship God. They'll be far too busy passing judgment against each other instead. The main problem here is that each group was setting itself up over the other, judging those who didn't see things their way as lesser Christians. Each side felt their position, their interpretation of the rules, put them on higher moral ground. Each side, the meat eaters versus the vegetarians, and the festival day celebrators versus the abstainers, was belittling and dismissing the other side with a judgmental sneer. See why I said how grateful I am for you all? Neither side looked like it was willing to give so much as an inch on their position, just like the stubborn Zax. So what's a hard-working evangelist to do? Now you can ask, now how does this apply to us today? Come on, we're not like that. Well, this Zax-like tendency to stand stubbornly on one set of rules or the other, refusing to hear the other side out or even to ponder if a particular issue is really worth the effort to argue about, has left human history dotted with damaged individuals harshly judged, and churches weakened or abandoned. I recently heard a report on what do you do with a church in your neighborhood that's been abandoned, because those big buildings are just a nuisance. It's tough. Well, Jesses and Zaxes couldn't move from their field because neither one of them would give way. Congregations with members fixed on harsh judgment over one rule or another, often with no greater theological import than food to eat or days to celebrate, experience community together. And I bring this all up because I Googled all this, asking, what is dividing American churches today? And near the top was a posting that's listed the top 100 issues dividing the church today. And like I did with the kids, I went, ugh. Paul would have screamed. There they were, the congregants of the Church of Rome, divided into camps in the back of their sanctuary. Omnivores versus vegetarians, special days versus all days alike camps. Do you suppose it went further with special days celebrating omnivores, taking stands against every day the same omnivores? On, it just keeps going. Looks to me like down that road lies madness. Different camps were definitely judging each other as being entirely unsocial. So Paul made some pointed remarks to bring these problems out into the open. He reminded the Roman congregants not to invite new folks in, especially those who are new to the faith, just to quarrel with them over opinions. That wasn't fair. Further, Paul asked his contentious church members who exactly they thought they were to pass judgment against each other. Toward the end, he pointedly adds, or you. Why do you despise your brother or sister? I wonder if there was anyone in the congregation that jumped when they heard that line, wondering if Paul was writing to them personal. Paul summed up everything with a beautiful line that actually falls one line beyond today's passage. He states, let us therefore no longer pass judgment on one another, but resolve instead never to put a stumbling block or hindrance in the way of another. Being a smart individual, Paul didn't attempt to take sides in these debates. Instead, he reminds his readers that God's church should be a welcoming place, where there is unity, not necessarily over the particulars of some practices, but unity and understanding that we all belong to God. God welcomes all of us, Paul stated, and we should welcome those who have different practices of piety and ours. Paul, being a clever evangelist, knew that his readers could be ornery and contrary. No doubt it occurred to him that some might think, well, if we're not to judge anyone on anything, then we can do anything. So Paul drives his argument home, countering that impression when he states, we all belong to God. God created us. Through Jesus Christ, God reclaimed us. And in the end, each and every one of us will stand before God to be judged. Basically, judgment was not the job of the Roman Christians. God would take care of that. Each Christian would have to satisfy themselves with the understanding that whether or not their fellows ate meat or celebrated a particular holy day, it was more important that they did so with integrity and honor to God than that everyone agreed with each and every one of those practices. Between that and last week's guidance to love God and love neighbor, because loving neighbor would keep the church following all the major and important commandments, the congregation would be able to stay on a good and healthy course. After all, love does no wrong to a neighbor, including passing unnecessary judgment. Returning to the present, a time when a writer could find 100 rules over which to divide the church. Let's head back to the wide open field in Dr. Seuss's Stubborn Zacks. Huge fan of their north and south going school, never budge an inch rule. They remain stuck facing each other with their arms crossed, eyes glaring, each one judging the other to be totally wrong, and neither of them getting anywhere as the years roll by. It's a battle of wills. There's a lot of anger, a lot of judgment. But the world does not stand still for them. Civilization grows up around those axes, houses, buildings, churches, railroads, and roadways hem them in all around. In fact, they're hemmed in so tightly that if they ever do decide to move, they'll find it nearly impossible to get the job done. The Zaxxas in the feud has been ignored. Their issues found inconsequential, their ability to make positive change all but gone. This would seem extremely foolish behavior if we didn't see Zaxxas all around us. And if we didn't recognize a certain Zaxx-like reflex within ourselves when we get our backs up over some rule or another. I know I've been there. Like both the Zaxxas and the church in Rome, we as individuals and congregations will find it difficult to grow if we're inflexible, especially over rules that make very little difference and are small interpretations. We're unable to budge or unwilling to consider anyone else's feelings or perspectives. We become stuck. This temptation to take on judgment ourselves rather than leaving it to God is found throughout human relationships on many levels. Such judgments can harden into stereotypes, into dehumanizing language about those who do not share our stance on the rules. And that tragically leads to communities that not only fail to worship together, but also become angry, hostile, judgmental, and even ready to strike down others. This was mentioned about the Middle East. The worst aspect of it all is that, like the Zaxxas, when members of a community with different views decide to judge one another, to claim the high moral ground for themselves and refuse to listen to other perspectives, both sides of the dispute have already lost. Neither side can change or grow, worship or work together, or make any positive change in the world around them. Instead, both sides fritter their lives away, not budging, failing to love their neighbors. Like Paul, we must recognize that we need to stand up for our great scripturally based moral principles, like love of God and neighbor. And keeping those firmly in mind, we can distinguish them from the wide clutter of beliefs, ideas, and biases that have no strong scriptural basis, but have instead risen up over time through convoluted processes and have become elevated far above their place, to a level where some consider them moral absolutes. Let's not be like those Zaxxas, or those who once judged vegetarians to be weaker than their omnivorous brothers and sisters of Rome, and be left sidelined and ignored, locked in inconsequential feuds, helping no one. Let's turn to dialogue instead of debate. Author Jim Henderson wrote that debate is humiliating your opponent. Dialogue is inviting your friend into conversation. Jesus was a master dialoguist. He never used power to overcome, he used kindness to overwhelm. Listening trumps talking, reflection trumps reactivity, and none of it requires judgment. It's free. In a devotional guide I have, the author Joshua Dubois provides his grandmother's take on Paul and his advice in this passage, and I did not think anyone could be more direct or more tough than the Apostle Paul. However, I have great respect for this grandmother. She said, "Never spend time arguing with a fool, because from a distance, people can't tell who's who." Dubois himself adds, "We might want to accept our differences of opinions, as there are really only a very few topics that are worth risking peace over." I was struggling for a way to end this when God, as God likes to do from time to time, a video called Boat Lift. I don't know if you've seen it or not. On September 11th, 2001, when individuals twisted by their harsh judgment for others turned passenger airplanes into guided missiles and murdered thousands as they destroyed the World Trade Center and damaged the Pentagon, a great number of others responded with judgment-free love of neighbor. Boat captains with vessels of various sizes and types pulled into the island of Manhattan, which had become stranded and isolated, to boat lift terrified, suffering, stranded people to safety. No judgment occurred. There were no litmus tests, no arguments over belief, no questions about foods and holidays. There were only outreaches of love to those in desperate need. There were a great many good Samaritans that day, a great many people acting out of Paul's admonition not to judge but to welcome. Terrible evil, spawned at least in part by harsh judgment of others, was countered with heroic acts of love of neighbor. Under terrifying conditions where further death and destruction was expected at any moment, one of the ship captains says, "I can't stand by and watch other people suffer." We can accomplish beautiful things when we leave the judging to God and love instead. When we resolve, as Paul said, never to put a stumbling block or hindrance in the way of another. I believe we do not in this church. I think that's a beautiful thing. But I think this is something we need to keep ever in mind, because a great part of our society does. Let us work together to put aside the very human desire to judge others. Let us free ourselves by leaving such judgment to God and be about the business of welcoming others, the weak as well as the strong. Let us set aside our desire to stand on the rules as we have learned them in our own version of North and South going schools, and instead work together for a better community, both within our walls and out in the streets. Together we can work out the two great commandments, love God and love neighbor, while in